What happens when a CEO pulls a 12-hour graveyard shift and sees his own supervisor threaten to dock a worker's pay? Harlen West was bone-tired, not from physical work, but from secondhand answers. He'd owned the delivery warehouse chain for 6 years, bought it from a couple who ran it like family, even as it grew. Since then, he'd expanded it to 7 locations across 3 states. But lately, things felt off. Orders were late. Driver turnover was high. He'd gotten a handwritten letter last week from someone who worked the night shift at one of the warehouses, no name, just a plea. Please come see what it's really like here. We're drowning. That stuck with him. Harlen hadn't met most of the warehouse teams personally. The company had grown fast. It was a corporate setup, now rotating shift leads, regional hiring, even outsourced training. So, workers rarely met the owner. That worked in his favor. He had a top-tier disguise, thick-rimmed glasses, a buzz cut replacing his usual swept-back hair, and a few well-placed tattoos from a makeup artist made him look like a guy named Troy, who just moved back to town. He filled out a fake application, got hired through a temp agency, and was assigned to the 3rd shift crew at the Eastbrook warehouse, one of the busiest locations. The night started slow. Harlen Troy was teamed up with a skinny 21-year-old named Marcus, who looked like he hadn't slept in a week but still grinned every time he helped someone. "You knew?" Marcus asked, handing Harlen a scanner. "Yeah," Harlen answered, scanning a box. "Just moved back, needed work." "Don't expect to sleep much," Marcus chuckled. "Night shift here's no joke." The warehouse was understaffed, only 6 people on the floor when there were supposed to be 10. Marcus explained that 2 quit last week and replacements hadn't shown. "Happens a lot," he said. "People come, see the pace, see how the lead talks to us, and bounce." That got Harlen's attention. Around 3:30 a.m., the supervisor Tanner showed up. He was a tall guy, maybe early 40s, with a permanent scowl and a clipboard he never put down. He barked every instruction like it was life or death, and never once lifted a box himself. Tanner cornered Harlen and Marcus near the loading dock. "Hey, you two took too long with that last batch," Tanner snapped. "You think this is a coffee shop?" Marcus looked confused. "We were delayed 'cause the pallet jack broke, I told." "I don't care," Tanner cut him off. "You want excuses or you want your hours?" Harlen watched Marcus pause, eyes flicking to the ground. "I'll take it out of your check if it happens again," Tanner growled. "I don't care how. I'll adjust your punch time. Got it?" Harlen's stomach twisted. That was illegal and threatening, and Marcus looked like he was about to cry. Tanner turned to Harlen. "And you don't keep up, I'll cut your hours too. I don't need dead weight." Harlen kept his cool. "Got it." Tanner walked off, yelling at another worker for stacking boxes too high. Later on break, Harlen sat with Marcus behind the building, near the dumpsters. "Has he done that before?" Harlen asked. Marcus nodded. "All the time. He docks time or messes with our clock-ins, says it's discipline. But if we report him, he says he'll make sure we don't get scheduled again." "Why don't you go higher up?" Harlen pressed. Marcus looked up with tired eyes. "We don't even know who's above him. All we get are emails signed with corporate team. No faces, no names." That hurt. Harlen had built this company so people like Marcus could have real jobs. Now, they didn't even know who he was. He worked the rest of the shift in silence, but his mind raced. By 6 a.m., his back hurt, his hands were sore, and his heart was heavy. Before leaving, he walked past the time clock where Tanner stood, arms crossed. "Hope you're faster tomorrow," Tanner said, not even looking at him. Harlen stared at him for a second, then nodded and left. Back in his car, he took off the glasses and wiped the fake tattoos from his arms. He gripped the steering wheel, jaw tight. This wasn't just a bad manager. This was theft. And it was happening under his name. Tomorrow night, Harlen West was going back. But this time, he wasn't just watching. The following night, Harlen entered the Eastbrook warehouse without the disguise. No glasses, no fake tattoos, no alias. Just a plain black jacket, work boots, and the badge clipped to his chest. Owner, West Freight Logistics. He didn't make an entrance. He didn't want attention. He arrived early, around 9:15 p.m., and watched from the upstairs break room that overlooked the main floor. A few overhead lights buzzed, flickering faintly in the corners, casting long shadows across the loading bays. The conveyor belt sat quiet, waiting. At 10 p.m., workers began trickling in. Harlen recognized two from the night before. Marcus arrived last, eyes bloodshot, same torn hoodie. He clocked in, stretched his arms, and walked straight to the pallet racks. No hesitation. Tanner showed up 20 minutes later, late for his own shift. He had a to-go cup in one hand and a Bluetooth earbud in the other, talking to someone and laughing about a poker game. He didn't glance at the workers already on the floor, just walked past them and headed to the back office. Harlen stepped downstairs. No one recognized him at first. Marcus gave him a double take, but didn't say anything. Harlen nodded once, then turned to the others. "Gather up," he said calmly. 6 warehouse workers and 1 forklift operator stopped what they were doing. Tanner was still in the back, door shut. Harlen didn't raise his voice. "I'm Harlen West. I own this company." Marcus's mouth parted slightly. The others just stared, silent. "I worked alongside you last night," Harlen continued. "I saw how things run here, and what I saw was unacceptable." He looked around the room. Nobody should be threatened over pay. Nobody should fear speaking up, and no one should be running a shift the way it's being run here. Before anyone could respond, the office door swung open. Tanner stepped out. Phone still in hand, voice raised. "What's all this? Why aren't you—" He froze mid-sentence when he saw Harlen. The Bluetooth slipped from his ear and hit the floor. "Mr. West," he said, stiffening. "Didn't know you were coming." "I know," Harlen replied. "That's the problem." Tanner tried to recover. "Look, I run a tight crew. These guys need direction or they get lazy. You've got to keep pressure." "You've been falsifying time records and threatening employees with wage theft," Harlen said, cutting him off. "You threatened Marcus in front of me last night. That's not pressure. That's abuse." Tanner's expression shifted not to remorse, but calculation. "Look," he said, stepping in closer. "This shift isn't like the others. These guys, half of them don't even show up unless someone's hard on them. You can't run this place like it's a school dance. You need discipline." Harlen didn't blink. "Is that your justification? That treating people like garbage is keeping the place running?" "I do what works." Harlen turned to the group again. "Has anyone here ever had hours changed without consent?" Every hand went up. Marcus spoke. "Sometimes we clock out at 6, though, but it shows 5:42 on the pay stub." The forklift driver added, "He said we wasted time on a water break. Took 30 seconds. A woman near the back, mid-40s, her hair pulled tight in a bandana, stepped forward. "2 months ago, I reported a broken pallet jack. He told me if I logged it again, I'd be on review. Said I was making him look bad." Harlen turned to Tanner. "You're done here, immediately." Tanner's face tightened. "You're not even going to let me explain? You already did. You said you do what works, and right now, what works is removing you before you do more damage." Tanner scoffed, tossed his badge on the floor, and walked out without another word. The warehouse was quiet for a full 30 seconds. Harlen looked at the team. "Everyone take 5, then we're going to talk. Not work, talk." They gathered in the break room upstairs. Harlen stood. Everyone else sat, some still looking like they weren't sure if this was real. Harlen gestured to the whiteboard behind him. "I need to know what's broken, not just equipment, everything." The woman in the bandana raised her hand first. "We've got no full-time maintenance. We patch things ourselves. Last week, that jack almost rolled into someone's leg." "Noted," Harlen said. "Next." The forklift driver leaned forward. "Schedules. We're always down at least 2 people. We don't even know who's supposed to be covering us half the time." Another worker added, "No one trains new hires. We just throw them in and hope they keep up. Half quit before the week's out." Harlen nodded. "Why didn't anyone report this?" A younger guy at the end of the table spoke. "We tried, but we don't know who's up the chain. HR is just a phone number. Emails never get answered. Tanner said we were on our own." Harlen took a breath. "You're not anymore." He pulled out a notepad from his jacket and wrote something down. "This place isn't going to fix itself overnight, but here's what happens now. First, I'm assigning a new interim shift lead by tomorrow, someone from another location I trust. Second, Back pay for any hours docked improperly is being calculated starting today. Third, I'm putting my direct contact info on every break room wall in every facility we run. He looked around. You'll have a face, a name, a line to someone who actually gives a damn. Marcus shifted in his seat. What about hiring? We're still 6 down. I'll be here until we fill those slots, personally, Harlen said, and I'll be working the next 3 nights on this shift. You're not carrying the weight alone anymore. The room stayed quiet, but the silence had changed, less beaten down, more stunned. Harlen turned to the woman in the bandana. What's your name? Cynthia. You've been here a while? Since just before the buyout. Good. You're the new point person until the interim lead arrives. I'll walk you through it. Cynthia blinked. You sure? I wouldn't ask if I wasn't. She nodded slowly. All right. Harlen looked out the window. The floor was quiet again. The lights still flickered. The conveyor belt still waited. But something had shifted. The silence wasn't hopeless anymore. It was potential. He turned back to the group. Let's get to work, but on our terms now. By the 3rd night, word had spread. Harlen didn't announce himself again. He didn't need to. The night crew was already watching him differently, not with skepticism, but with cautious curiosity. No one celebrated. No one high-fived him. But they showed up early. They looked him in the eye. That was enough. Cynthia stood near the time clock with a small notepad and a pen tucked behind her ear, already checking the equipment log. Her voice was calm but firm, and her steps were deliberate. She didn't try to act like a boss. She acted like someone who'd been waiting for permission to lead. 2 jacks still down, she said as Harlen joined her. I tagged them. Sent the repair request, like you showed me. Good, Harlen replied. We'll escalate it if they don't respond by tomorrow. The floor was still short-staffed. Only 7 workers, including Harlen. He paired up with a woman named Jay, who handled returns and rescans. Her pace was clipped, and she didn't talk much at first, just nodded whenever he offered to grab the next item. But as the night stretched on, she started to open up. You really own this whole thing? She asked, scanning a mislabeled crate. I do, Harlen said, lifting the lid. Bought it 6 years ago. Then why are you down here sorting busted barcodes with me? Because I stopped paying attention. Now I'm fixing that. She looked at him again, this time with a mix of suspicion and quiet approval. Most owners wouldn't. I'm not most owners. She didn't reply, but she didn't look away either. By midnight, the team had fallen into a rhythm. Harlen watched Jay run the scanner like an extension of her hand, barely looking at the screen. Across the floor, Marcus was balancing 2 pallets by himself again, sweat beading along his hairline. He'd picked up the pace since Tanner left, but it was clear the workload hadn't changed. Harlen walked over and took the 2nd pallet jack from him without a word. Marcus blinked. You sure? Harlen gave a short nod and started wheeling the load toward the outbound dock. Marcus followed. As they moved, Harlen caught a glimpse of a man standing near the far exit, tall, lean, wearing a reflective vest and holding a clipboard under one arm. He wasn't part of the crew. Harlen set the pallet down and walked over. You from maintenance? He asked. The man looked up. No, I'm Greg, regional. They sent me to observe overnight operations. Harlen raised an eyebrow. Who's they? Corporate HR. I got the call this morning. Said there was some kind of incident here. Harlen folded his arms. And you were told to come watch? Yeah, they said the owner would be handling it, but I figured I'd see for myself. I've been to the day shift here twice. Never seen it like this. Like what? Greg gestured toward the floor. Quiet, focused, no one yelling. Everyone's moving but not panicking. It's tight. Cleaner too. Harlen looked around. The lights still flickered. The air still buzzed with the hum of conveyor belts. But Greg wasn't wrong. There was a different energy now. Not relaxed, but steady. We're still short, Harlen said. And the workload hasn't dropped. They're just carrying it better. Greg nodded. I'll report what I see. But off the record, you've got good people here. They were just getting stepped on. Some still are, Harlen said. We're not done. Greg offered a quick nod and headed back toward the exit, taking notes as he walked. Around 2 a.m., a new temp arrived late and confused. His name was Devin, thin-framed, maybe 19, with oversized boots and a jacket 2 sizes too big. He looked around like he expected someone to yell at him. Cynthia approached slowly. "You the new guy from Express Staffing?" Devin nodded once. "All right," she said. "You're with me. Let's get you a scanner and show you where not to lose a finger." Harlen watched from a distance. Cynthia's tone was dry, but her pace slowed enough for Devin to follow. No barking, no threats, just guidance. By 3:0, Harlen could feel the weight of it all in his shoulders. He leaned against a column near the loading bay, stretching his back when Jay walked over holding a clipboard. "You got a minute?" "Sure." She handed him the board. "That's the return log for the week. We've had 12 mislabels from the same supplier. That racks up hours fixing their mistakes. Thought someone should know." Harlen scanned the sheets. "You've been tracking this by hand?" "No one else was, and I got tired of pretending it wasn't happening." "You think we should drop the vendor?" "Either that or charge them for the time they cost us." Harlen handed the clipboard back. "Send me copies. I'll make sure someone with a desk sees this." Jay nodded once. "You know, I almost quit 2 months ago." "What stopped you?" She shrugged. "Rent. And the hope that someone would eventually show up who gave a damn. Sorry it took this long." "I'm not." She walked off without waiting for a reply. Around 4 a.m., the rhythm broke. A loud crash echoed from the far end of the warehouse. Harlen and Marcus ran toward the noise and found Devin standing next to a toppled stack of plastic bins. No one was hurt, but the damage was clear cracked containers, spilled inventory, and a bent guardrail. "I didn't mean to," Devin said, panicked. "I didn't know the brake lever was stuck." Cynthia arrived seconds later, already pulling on gloves. "All right." "No one's bleeding?" Everyone shook their heads. "Then we clean it, and we fix that jack before someone else uses it." Harlen knelt beside the jack and inspected the lever. The latch was jammed, not Devin's fault. This should have been tagged out days ago. He stood up and turned to Cynthia. "We need a full equipment audit, starting now." She nodded and walked off to grab the forms. Devin looked like he might cry. "I'm sorry. I really didn't know." "You didn't do anything wrong," Harlen said. "You weren't trained. That's on us." Devin nodded, eyes down. Harlen gave him a light pat on the shoulder. "Help me sort the bins. We'll get through it." By the time the shift neared its end, most of the mess was cleared. The guardrail was taped off. The broken bins were marked for disposal, and Cynthia had a list of every piece of equipment needing inspection. Harlen called the team together before clock out. "We've still got problems," he said, "but we're facing them now, together." No applause, just quiet nods. He turned to Devin. "You're staying on, but you're getting proper training first." Then to Jay. "You're getting paid for the time you've spent tracking vendor issues. You shouldn't have had to do it alone." And to Cynthia. "You're getting the authority to shut down any equipment that's unsafe. No sign-off needed." She raised an eyebrow. "Even if it delays shipping?" "If a delay keeps someone from getting hurt, it's worth it." She nodded. As the crew trickled out, Harlen stayed behind. He walked the perimeter of the warehouse alone, clipboard in hand, checking the notes Cynthia had given him. The list was long, too long, but at least now he had names, faces, real stories behind the numbers. And for the first time in a long time, Harlen West knew exactly what needed to happen next. The following week, Harlen returned to Eastbrook at 9:45 p.m., pulling up in the same pickup he'd driven for years. It was the first night he wasn't scheduled to work the shift himself, but he wasn't ready to let go completely. Not yet. The moment he stepped through the side entrance, the atmosphere felt different. Not easier, just more grounded. He passed Cynthia near the dock, clipboard in hand, her voice low as she reviewed a load sheet with Jay, who now wore a company-issued safety vest with a laminated badge marked Shift Trainer. Neither woman paused when he walked by, which was exactly what Harlen wanted. He moved toward the far end of the warehouse, where a small table had been cleared and a corkboard had been installed on the wall above it. A bright blue sign hung at the top. Employee Feedback Reviewed. Weekly by Leadership. Below it, a dozen handwritten notes were pinned in neat rows. Some were just one-liners. One said, "Forklift charger still overheating." Another asked, "Can we get gloves that actually fit?" Each had a colored sticker beside it, green for resolved, yellow for pending, red for in progress. Harlen read each one, then signed the corner of the board. Quiet accountability. He found Marcus at the packing station, sleeves rolled up, scanning boxes at near double pace. "You're not on overtime, are you?" Harlen asked. Marcus tapped the screen once, then looked up. "Nah, just wanted to knock a few more out before the bell." "You've been keeping up all right?" "Better now that I'm not doing two jobs. That new guy Devin, he's catching on fast." Harlen nodded. "He's got potential." "Yeah, he's still nervous sometimes, but he started asking questions. That's a good sign, right?" "It is," Harlen said. "Means he cares." Marcus went back to work without another word, moving with a quiet intensity Harlen hadn't seen before. Not rushed, just focused. Next, Harlen climbed the metal stairs to the break room. A few workers were on their scheduled 15, sipping coffee or microwaving sandwiches. A new face caught his eye, a woman in her 30s, with a buzzed haircut and a knee brace strapped over her cargo pants. She was laughing at something Cynthia had just said. Harlen leaned against the doorframe. "New hire?" he asked. Cynthia turned. "Yeah. Her name's Rhea. She used to do overnight fulfillment at the Metro South warehouse. Transferred here. Said she wanted to work under a team that wasn't run like a boot camp." Her words. Rhea looked up. "You're the owner, right?" "That's what they tell me." She laughed. "Well, whoever trained Cynthia, give that person a raise. She's the best lead I've worked under." Cynthia raised an eyebrow. "You trying to butter me up, or just admitting I scare you a little?" Rhea grinned. "Both." Harlen gave Cynthia a look. "You comfortable leading now?" "I'm not trying to be anyone's boss," she said. "I just make sure stuff gets done without anyone getting hurt. That's enough." "It is," Harlen said. "And it's working." He left them to their break and stepped out onto the catwalk that overlooked the main floor. From there, he could see the full operation in motion. Jay was training Devin on a new scanning system they'd just rolled out that week. 2 new hires worked the inbound dock under the supervision of a regional lead from another warehouse, who had been reassigned permanently after proving herself during the interim period. The equipment audit had flagged 17 items across 3 warehouses. Each was now repaired, replaced, or pulled from service. There was still strain. Harlen could see it in the way people moved, shoulders tight, steps deliberate. This wasn't a fairy tale turnaround. The work still demanded more than it should, and hiring was still slower than he wanted. But people weren't breaking under it anymore. He made his way down to the office where a man in a button-down shirt was waiting with a file folder in hand. "Got a minute?" the man asked as Harlen entered. "Yeah. I'm Carl, from legal. You asked us to look into the time card discrepancies for the last quarter. What did you find?" Carl passed him the folder. 17 employees across Eastbrook and 2 other locations had altered hours, all during night shifts, all under Tanner's supervision. And the total? Just over $1,900 in unpaid wages. We've issued corrected paychecks already. Letters went out this morning. "Good," Harlen said. "There's more," Carl added. "We ran a full audit of internal complaints for the last 6 months. A dozen were marked resolved in the system but never followed up on, all from night crew. Most were either redirected or ignored by the same regional HR contact." Harlan's jaw tightened. "Name? Carrie Voss. She was reporting directly to corporate HR, not operations. She's been placed on leave pending investigation." "Not pending. She's done." Carl nodded. "Understood." Harlen closed the folder. "Put her replacement in field rotation. No more desk-only HR. Every contact needs to see the floor, at least once a week, eyes on, ears open. No exceptions." Already drafting the directive. Harlen stood, stretched his back, then stepped out of the office again. He headed toward the outbound dock, where Jay was finishing her task list. "You got a second?" he asked her. "Always." "I read your vendor report." "Yeah?" "I met with them this morning, showed them your logs. They're reimbursing us for the extra labor hours, and we're reviewing the contract." Jay looked surprised. "Didn't think it'd go that far?" "It did because you documented everything. That's leadership. I'm just tired of cleaning up other people's messes." Harlen nodded. "Then let's make fewer messes." She let out a breath, then gave a small nod. That'd be a first. As the shift neared its end, Harlan gathered the crew on the floor, not in the break room, not behind closed doors, but by the conveyor belts where they worked every night. "I won't take much of your time," he said. "I've seen how companies rot from the inside. Quietly, one ignored shift at a time. That almost happened here. I let it happen." No one interrupted. "But we're not hiding anymore. Bad leadership's gone. And the good leadership came from you, from the people who stayed, spoke up, and kept showing up." He looked at Cynthia. "You stood up when no one else would. You're getting promoted to night operations coordinator, with full hiring input and shift scheduling authority." Her jaw tensed, but her eyes didn't waver. "To Jay, for building the only functioning inventory tracking method we had when corporate dropped the ball, you're getting a retention bonus and a bump to systems supervisor." Jay blinked but didn't look away. "Marcus, you kept this shift running when it should have collapsed. You're getting full-time status, benefits, and a peer training stipend." Marcus swallowed once and nodded. Harlan turned to the rest. "Everyone else, look around. This is the new baseline. Not perfect, but honest. And if anything here starts slipping again, you don't need a disguise to get my attention. You've got my number. Use it." They didn't cheer. They didn't clap. They just listened, and that was enough. When the sun started to rise, Harlan walked back to the parking lot alone. The warehouse behind him buzzed with the early morning cleanup routine equipment returns. Logs submitted, floors swept. It would start all over again in less than 16 hours. He sat in his truck, watching as Cynthia walked a new recruit through the loading procedures, pointing to warning labels and demonstrating how to test the emergency stop. The recruit nodded, mirroring her actions. The company wasn't fixed, but it was no longer broken in silence.